Get ready for this. We're diving into that age-old question. How did wolves become dogs? And the answer might surprise you.
It is a bit of a head scratcher, isn't it?
Yeah, for the longest time, we just assumed humans were the ones calling the shots. Like we tamed and bred wolves into our furry friends.
Right, kind of like a grand plan to create the perfect companion. But there's this new theory picking up steam.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
Self-domestication.
Wait, self-domestication? You're saying wolves basically chose to become dogs?
Yeah, that's what this new research in the Proceedings of the Royal Society B is suggesting. And get this, they didn't go digging for fossils or analyzing DNA. They built a virtual world.
Hold on, back up a second. A virtual world. Like a video game.
Kind of. It's called agent-based modeling. Think SimCity, but for wolves.
Okay, now that's what I call a deep dive. A digital wolf pack running around in a simulated world. I'm all ears.
So it's a tool scientists are using more and more to study how things evolve. They create this whole digital world, set the rules, and then hit play and see what happens.
Fascinating. So they set up this wolf simulator, and they suddenly start fetching virtual sticks and wagging their digital tails.
Well, not quite, but the researchers did play around with two main things to see how they affected the wolves' evolution: sexual selection and how much they could get their paws on human food.
Okay, so the friendliest wolves were suddenly the most popular pups on the block, right?
Exactly. Imagine you're a wolf in this world. You can try to be all tough and fight for scraps, OR. You can just chill near the humans, snag some easy food, and maybe even get more mates.
Definitely a smart move. But I always thought domestication was a really slow process, like tens of thousands of years.
That's what we thought too. But the results from this simulation were kind of shocking. In a lot of scenarios, I'm talking between 37 and 74% wolves evolved into dogs in a time frame that lines up with what we're finding from archaeology.
So you're saying in just a few thousand years, wolves could have gone from howling at the moon to snuggling by the fire.
Wild, right?
That is wild.
And this actually links to a real-world experiment. You probably heard of it, the Russian silver fox study.
Oh yeah, vaguely.
Scientists basically bred these foxes for tameness. And over generations, they started looking and acting a lot more like dogs, like floppy ears, wagging tails, the whole shebang.
Wait, so just by picking the friendliest foxes to breed, they ended up changing their whole appearance? I need to hear more about this.
Totally.
So just by picking the friendliest foxes, they recreated dog evolution in a lab.
Pretty much.
That's incredible.
It really is. And, it shows that if you focus on just one trait, like how tame they are, it can have a huge impact, changing a bunch of other things too. Really supports the idea that wolves could have gone through something similar on their own.
So we've got this virtual world saying it's possible, and this real-life fox experiment backing it up. But I'm still curious about the nitty-gritty. Like, what exactly did they find out about how these digital wolves went to the dogs, so to speak?
Right. Well, remember those two big factors, sexual selection and food from humans. They dug a bit deeper into those in the simulation. And the food part, that's particularly interesting.
Okay, let's talk about that. It seems like a steady supply of scraps from humans would be the key to becoming a dog.
Seems logical, right?
Yeah.
But actually what they found was that having an environment where food was scarce sometimes, that actually sped up the evolution of these dog-like wolves.
Wait, so you're saying times of scarcity help dogs evolve? I'm not sure I follow.
So think about it like this. If food is scarce, the wolves that are okay hanging around humans, they've got a secret weapon, right? They can scavenge around settlements and get to stuff other wolves can't.
Ah, so it's not just about having scraps, it's about having a reliable food source when everyone else is struggling.
Exactly. And this could explain why dog domestication might have happened in bursts and not so gradually. Imagine a harsh winter hits, wolves are starving, but those friendly ones, they're doing all right. They survive, pass on their genes. It's evolution playing favorites, kind of.
Survival of the friendliest. I love it. But, this whole simulation thing, it's still a virtual world, right?
Yeah.
So how can we be sure this is really how it all went down thousands of years ago?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's important to remember that no study is perfect. We can't actually travel back in time, so we have to work with what we've got.
So are there other explanations for how dogs came to be? Maybe humans did play a more active role than this self-domestication theory suggests.
Oh, absolutely. Some researchers think early humans might have captured and bred wolves on purpose, like they were intentionally directing the whole domestication process. And there is some archaeological evidence to back that up. Like sometimes ancient humans and wolves were buried together, which suggests maybe a deeper bond.
So maybe it wasn't just wolves being like, hey, humans seem pretty cool.
Mm.
Maybe our ancestors were thinking, hey, these wolves could be useful partners.
Could have been a bit of both, right? This self-domestication idea doesn't necessarily rule out humans being involved at all. Maybe some wolves did become tamer on their own, and then humans saw those friendly wolves and thought, hey, we could work with this, and started breeding them intentionally.
So less of a sudden transformation and more of a like a slow dance between two species, each one influencing the other over time.
I like that, a slow dance, and it's a dance that's still going on today. Dogs have gone from helpful partners to, well, family.
Well said. It really is amazing to think about the long journey that led from wolves howling in the wild to all the different kinds of dogs we have today.
Yeah, speaking of that journey, you mentioned earlier you were interested in the details of that simulation. Was there anything in particular you were wondering about?
Yeah, you know what? I'm really intrigued by how they actually represented those different wolf personalities in the model. Like, it seems like those individual differences would be super important for this whole self-domestication idea to work.
Oh, absolutely, you're right. They had to find a way to measure those behaviors so the computer could make sense of it all.
So how did they do that? Did they give each wolf, like, a score for how bold or aggressive it was?
Pretty much. They gave each wolf a set of numbers that showed how likely it was to do certain things. For example, a wolf with a high boldness score, it might be more likely to go near a human settlement, even if it was risky.
Right, and a wolf with a high aggression score might be more likely to fight other wolves, even over scraps.
Exactly. So by changing those numbers, the researchers could see how different personalities did in different situations. Like they were playing a giant game of what if with wolf evolution.
And the results of those what-ifs give us these really cool clues about how wolves might have become dogs.
Precisely. And remember, we've been talking about behavior, how they act, what they look like. But underneath all that, there's a whole other layer to this story.
Okay, so we've been talking about how these wolves may be, self-domesticated, acting differently, even looking different.
Hmm.
But what's going on in their DNA? Like, what changes in those friendlier wolves actually made them more likely to hang out with us?
Right. That's the big question, isn't it? What's happening at the genetic level? Because, domestication isn't just about what you can see on the outside.
Right.
It's about changes to the genes that control how an animal, develops, how it behaves.
So is there, like, a specific gene that makes a wolf want to be a human's best friend? Like, is there a cuddle gene or something?
Well, I wish it were that simple. It's not just one gene, but a whole bunch of them that get tweaked during domestication.
Oh, okay. So it's more like a network of genes all working together to shape a wolf's personality and, like, how it reacts to humans.
Exactly. And scientists are starting to figure out some of the key players in all this. For instance, genes involved in the neural crest. That's a part of the embryo that helps form facial features, but it also influences social behavior.
So those floppy ears and wagging tails we see in dogs, could that be linked to changes in these neural crest genes?
Yeah, that's one theory. And it's not just about physical changes either. These genes can affect things like stress hormones, making an animal less fearful, more comfortable around humans.
Wow, so by comparing the genes of dogs and wolves, we can actually see, like, the genetic steps of domestication. It's like we're decoding the recipe for making a dog.
I like that, decoding the recipe. And to really go back in time, they're even using ancient DNA.
Oh, wow. So, like, extracting DNA from really old dog bone.
Yeah, fossilized bones. So they can actually see how those genes were changing thousands of years ago.
That's incredible. What are they finding with this ancient DNA? Any surprises?
Well, one of the biggest surprises is that dogs might have been domesticated multiple times in different parts of the world.
Really? So it wasn't just one aha moment where wolves became dogs.
Seems not. It might have been a bunch of separate events happening in different places.
Huh. That makes sense, I guess. I mean, wolves were all over the place. Humans were migrating. It seems likely that different groups of wolves and humans would have met up, maybe leading to dogs in different places.
Exactly. Different paths, but maybe ending up with the same result, wolves turning into dogs. Sometimes on their own, sometimes maybe with a little help from humans.
This is blowing my mind. So many twists and turns in this story. It sounds like we're just scratching the surface. What other mysteries are out there about dog domestication?
Oh, tons. Like, how did we end up with so many different dog breeds? We're talking about everything from Chihuahuas to Great Danes. How do you go from wolves to that?
Seriously. It's like evolution took the basic dog and then just ran wild with it.
And get this, ancient DNA is helping us figure that out too. By comparing the genomes of all these different dog breeds, ancient and modern, researchers can actually crack the genetic changes that made those variations happen.
So we can actually see how a pug, for example, evolved from wolves. That's amazing.
It is, and it's not just about curiosity. This research helps us understand dog diseases better. It could even help us develop new treatments.
So our deep dive into dog domestication, it's more than just an interesting story. It actually has an impact on our furry friends today.
Exactly. It really shows how scientific curiosity can lead to some pretty amazing discoveries that help both humans and animals.
Well, I think it's safe to say we've given our listeners a lot to chew on today. From those first friendly wolves deciding to hang out with humans, to the crazy diversity of dogs we have today, all thanks to evolution and a bit of genetic magic.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. And to our listeners, keep those tails wagging and those minds curious. There's still so much to learn about our canine pals. Who knows? Maybe one of you will be the one to make the next big discovery in the world of dog domestication.